Today on Dr. Phil.
Should a man be forced to be a father?
I did not make a choice at that point.
Do you have feelings at all? The child is your offspring. Now, he feels he's been tricked.
We just say to the men, you need to pay.
Stop with the excuses and start supporting your child.
What are your rights as a woman for getting child support?
The child is the innocent victim in all of this, not you.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
Some say it's a hard life, but it's hard for us all. Always hold on.
In 10,
Always
9,
be strong. Reach out for
5, 4, 3, 2.
Stand by, camera 6. Go, Dr. Phil.
Thank you very much. All right, getting pregnant before marriage used to be something that you just kept as a secret, or you solved it with a shotgun wedding. Now, legally, what are the responsibilities of a man once there is a baby? And what are your rights as a woman for getting child support? Now, 2 years ago, we did a show about a case being dubbed the Roe versus Wade for men, where a young man, Matt Dubay, felt he was being forced into fatherhood. Now, Matt took his case to court in the state of Michigan.
From the beginning, I had told her very clearly that, at this point in my life, there's no way that I could be a father. She informed me that she had a condition where she could not get pregnant. She also informed me she was on the pill for other medical reasons.
Matt Dubay says despite that, his ex-girlfriend, Lauren Wells, did get pregnant. As a result, he has to pay $500 a month in child support.
Matt's lawyer filed suit in federal court.
Forcing me to be a father financially, mentally, and physically is definitely not something that I feel is fair.
This child does exist with your DNA. Is that difficult for you to look at that child and know that that is your biological child?
If I made the decision to be a father, I would wholeheartedly be a father and I would take great care of the child. But I was a father against my will.
Have you held a child?
No.
You haven't touched the child or been around the child and you have no desire to do so?
I don't believe that's what's best.
I think he's going to be a great father when he chooses to be.
Do you expect to win this case, or are you trying to advance the debate through the lawsuit?
I do expect to win.
Well, since that show, Matt's case was thrown out of court. He fought back, and it was thrown out again. Now, Matt's mother, Diane, says the state made an example of her son and just basically destroyed him. They are fed up with a system that they say gives no rights to a man.
I felt that it was ridiculous to call the lawsuit frivolous. It affects all the rights of all the men of this country. My son's been punished. I think he's been set up as a scapegoat. I think he's been set up to show the men of this country that you better not question the system as it is. I believe they're trying to scare men out there that want to address this rights issue.
So Diane says her son has suffered both financially and emotionally.
Matt has been not only thrown out of court, but he has been hit with sanctions in the amount of thousands of dollars.
This situation's been a burden on me financially.
He sold his car and he refinanced his house. He's probably always going to be in debt.
Before all this happened, I was a very trusting person. Now I am not.
My son has had this affect his business life, his social life, and he's even lost some friends over this. And he has said to me, I don't know if I can ever trust a woman again. I don't think he dated for about 2.5 years.
Moving a relationship forward, making them physical, is much slower now.
My son can be out in a social setting and people come up to him and call him names, call him a deadbeat dad.
They are telling me that I need to be a part of the child's life when I don't feel that's the right thing to do at this point.
People tell him to stand up and be a man. I feel that my son has stood up and he is a man.
Joining us now are Matt and his mother Diane, as well as Mel Fight, Matt's advocate and director of the National Center for Men. Also joining us is Gloria Allred, president of the Women's Equal Rights Legal Defense and Education Fund. So let's just get right into this. You took this to trial and lost.
Correct. It was actually thrown out. It never went to trial.
It never went. You got thrown out before you even got to be heard.
Exactly.
Okay, but you went back for another bite at the apple.
Correct.
Okay, this time was it heard?
No, it was not.
Okay, thrown out again.
Yes.
Okay, why do they keep throwing this out?
It was thrown out because I think Matt was going to show tremendous inequality in how child support was collected. The court didn't want to see it. They threw it out, and then they punished him. They made him pay all the legal fees connected with the trial. I think it was a message sent to any man, don't even try it. The judge acted shamefully. He acted more like a thug than a jurist by throwing his case out and then making him pay all the costs.
Okay, you have fathered a child, biologically.
No, technically. I have not made the choice
You
to
impregnated
be
a woman.
father. Yes.
Okay, and you say that you didn't mean to.
No,
I mean,
there was discussion. I never made the choice. We had discussions, and I informed her that I was not ready to be a father.
I think if a man and woman together make a choice to have a sexual relationship for the purpose of intimacy and not procreation, as long as that choice is made together as a couple, then the choice belongs to both of them and not just to her. Even in the event of a contraceptive failure, that choice belongs to both of them and not just to her, because sexual choices made as a couple belong to the couple. That's what it means to have consensual sex.
You say that the decision belongs to both of them, and you say you didn't have a choice in this,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
But you made your choice when you got in bed and had sex. I mean, you made a choice at that point, right?
I did not make a choice at that point. I explained to her that I was not ready to be a father, and we both agreed that we would not be parents at that point. She informed me.
Your best protection then is to not have sex with this woman.
Yeah, but they said that about women too. They said if you don't want to be a mother, don't have sex. The society has repudiated this argument. The society says to women, you are entitled to have a private, intimate life while at the same time choosing not to be a parent, even in the event of a contraceptive failure. What Matt knows now is what every man should know. When he closes the door of the bedroom and thinks he's alone with his sweetheart, not true. In that bedroom with him, every time he makes love with his woman, there's looking over his shoulder, taking notes, ready to spring into action is the Attorney General of the state where he lives. The only person who had any rights in that bedroom was the woman in his case. He had no choice, no rights.
Gloria, what do you say about this?
Well, Matt, you are a father. That's 100% clear. And there's a beautiful little baby in existence. You need to take full responsibility for that baby, because it's either you, that's important, it's either you or the taxpayer along with the mother. And as between you and the taxpayer, if she has to go on welfare, frankly, I think you're the one who should be supporting your child.
I don't, you know, if a woman's reproductive choice was imperiled, you would be railing against that. And I have a question for you. In the state of New York where I live, the statute says a parent, doesn't say a mother, says a parent can drop a baby off and walk away with no responsibilities whatsoever. Now, suppose someone came to you, a young father, you're an attorney, and said, Ms. Allred, what do you think? Can I take advantage of the statute and drop my baby off and walk away just like a woman can? What advice would you give to that young man?
You know, that's a whole other issue, but I do think that a safe harbor for children who are not wanted by both parents or who think that their child is better off placed with a family who can take care of them.
That's what he thinks.
That's a whole other option. But hold on. The point is, this mother is keeping this child, and you have a responsibility for this child. Instead of you're going to court, paying lawyers, having to pay sanctions to the court, which is in a sense a fine. Why don't you use that money to support your child? Why don't you get involved with the life of your child?
He is supporting his child.
Visit that child, because the child is an innocent victim in all of this, not you.
We never say to a woman, you must be a mother. Doesn't matter if you're tricked, doesn't matter how it came about, your rights don't matter. We never say that to a mother. We just say to the men, you need to pay. My son acted responsibly when he had an intimate relationship with this woman. He did everything he could do to take care that there would not be a child in this situation.
Rather than supporting your son in something that is wrong, that is shutting this little innocent child out of his life and out of yours, let this child into our life. Let's share in the responsibility and the love, because that's something we'll always be happy we did.
I can guarantee you, as a woman, if the men of this country forced us into motherhood and they said, you must be a mother, because I want to be a father, and then the men of this country forced the women to pay them child support for 18 years to support that choice, there would be a rumbling across this country and change would come. Feel free to, change would come immediately.
All right, hold on. I've got to take a break right now. When we come back, Mel says there should be a window of time that a woman is allowed to inform the man that she is pregnant. We're going to talk about that when we come back.
After all he went through, to be humiliated by the judges and punished for bringing a lawsuit in this country, it's amazing to me. We do not have equal justice under the law.
You may remember the case being called Roe versus Wade for men, with a young man, Matt, who says he didn't have a say in whether or not he became a father. And so he took on a legal system that he claims gives all the choice to women. Now, Matt and his mother, Diane, are here, as well as Mel Fight from the National Center for Men's Rights, and Gloria Allred, who goes to court on behalf of many women and their rights and their cases. Now, look, is there a point when two people, a man and a woman, have consensual sex? Once you cross that threshold, aren't you making a conscious assumption of certain risk? Don't you forego certain options because you've now completed the act?
Yeah, but let's be clear. The price of intimacy should not be giving up reproductive choice. And that's what Roe versus Wade stood for. A woman has options. Even she's taking a risk, but she's not taking the risk that someone is going to force her to be a parent simply because she had sex. I agree with you. I think the window of opportunity for a man to opt out should be very narrow, even a matter of days. I think a woman should have a responsibility to inform a man that a pregnancy resulted if they have discussed, if they have talked together that they did not want to be a parent. Under those circumstances where she was not deceived by him, he should have a right to then say to her, it's your body, it's your pregnancy. You do what you want without interference by me, but do not impose your reproductive will on me against my will. And as long as he makes that clear in a matter of days and signs an affidavit with the court, I think he should have a chance to opt out.
All right, so if she wanted to terminate the pregnancy, would he have the right to say no?
I believe in reproductive choice for women. I think a woman should have a right to control her body and her life without interference from a man. I'm an advocate for reproductive choice, not men's rights. I think Gloria is an advocate for women's rights and not reproductive rights.
What do you say?
Well, Dr. Phil, first of all, there's no 100% safe and effective birth control. So that even if both parties were using birth control, it is possible that the woman is going to become pregnant. Once she does become pregnant, she has a right to take that pregnancy to term or to terminate that pregnancy during a certain period of time. Once she takes that pregnancy to term and delivers the baby, then the baby's in existence. Someone is going to need to take care of that child. And that's what this is
Why
really
not an
all
adoptive
about.
family?
Who is going to support the child? We have millions of mothers in this country, Dr. Phil, who are on welfare, aid to families with dependent children. And they're there because fathers are giving countless excuses about why they can't or shouldn't support their babies. If I had $1 for every excuse they give, the mothers of this country would be rich. It's time to go away and stop with the excuses and start supporting your child.
You and I,
they need it.
You and I have an opportunity here, which I think is going to be squandered. We could say, as a men's advocate, as a women's rights lawyer, that the concept of reproductive choice, that you shouldn't be forced to be a parent simply because you have sex. It's a fundamental human right deserving of perpetual constitutional protection. You can join me in that and raise this right to a level of a human right. Will you do that?
What about the baby's choice, Mel? The baby's choice to come into the world. The baby is here. Wait, the baby needs food, clothing, shelter, transportation, medical, and lots of other things. Who is going to provide that? It takes two parents, and that's what Matt and Diane should be doing.
Right now, there's some 2 million couples and individuals who are desperate to adopt. I think an adoptive solution is better than forcing someone into parenthood. But the child in this case,
people to place a child for adoption.
The child in this case is going to be brought into a world where there's a lot of inequality between men and women, and resentment and divorce and heartache. I'm trying to create a world of greater equality. I think that's in the best interest of all children.
It's not about them anymore. It's about this baby.
Tell us again how long it was after conception that you found out about the child?
Very shortly thereafter, within a matter of weeks, I guess.
Okay, so this would perhaps have been within a window that you would espouse.
And I would give him a very limited time, because I want her to know his choice before she acts on her choice. So within a matter of some weeks, and then that's it.
Okay, so, and at that point, you certainly said, I don't want to do this.
I was very clear.
Do you have any feelings at all about the fact that you have a child in this world, whether you wanted it or not, whether it's fair or not, whether the Attorney General was in there making notes while you were doing this, whatever was going on, do you have any thoughts or feelings that you have a child in this world that is your offspring?
Very similar to any parent who's given their child up for adoption. I hope the best for the child. I hope everything turns up great. Those are my feelings.
I think one day at the end of your life, if you reflect, you're going to say, I wish I had done better for my child, because my child
for society.
Okay, we got to take a break. I'm going to add to this conversation, so I'm going to introduce you next to a couple who thought they had the ideal family life. Then, a shock that turned that image upside down as a husband is ordered to get a DNA test for a baby that he never knew existed. We'll be right back.
Noel sat me down and said, I have something devastating to tell you, and explained to me that his ex-girlfriend was having him paternity tested. I should not have to be paying every month to a child and a woman that I don't know because she made a choice to have a child.
Nicole says she thought they had created an ideal family life, happily married with 2 children of their own. Then an ex-girlfriend of her husband, Noel, came into their perfect picture world and asked for a DNA test.
I was down surfing in El Segundo. My car broke down. I knew that she lived real close to there. She came and helped me out with my problem, and I ended up sleeping with her. It was just a chance encounter, a 5-minute deal. She told me that she was taking her birth control and there's no way that she could get pregnant. 2 years later, I was notified by the court that I was to be genetically tested for the probability that I was the father. I had already started a life with my wife and I had already had children.
Noel sat me down and said, I have something devastating to tell you. And through tears, explained to me that his ex-girlfriend was having him paternity tested. Noel really felt blindsided, and he felt trapped.
I think I was wrong. I think I got screwed.
I was overwhelmingly shocked. Noel and I could not believe this was happening to us.
I was given no choice. I was given no voice. I just don't get it.
Well, the results of the DNA test were positive. Noel is the father of this now 2-year-old child. The court ordered him to pay child support, and both Noel and Nicole say this is incredibly unfair.
Noel and I pay $350 a month in child support.
My wife is so strong in her view that we had no choice.
I should not have to be paying every month to a child and a woman that I don't know because she made a choice to have a child.
The whole court and judicial system in its own is a game. I absolutely don't think that I should have to pay anything.
If a woman chooses to have a child as a single mom, then she needs to be responsible for that choice. When the times get tough, that you don't go back and hold somebody else accountable for a choice that she made.
How can anybody seriously look at that situation and not think that I was wronged?
The thing that we fear most about this situation is that it won't ever end. Does she get to come back and ask for more support? Does she want college tuition? Does he need braces? Are we responsible for all the incidental things that come along as this child gets older?
I lead my life right now not knowing where the future is going.
This is a huge black cloud that just hangs over our heads constantly.
You have sex this time, and then you don't hear anything for 2 years.
2 years.
Okay.
At which point I start a family, I make a choice, I have children, I get married for the first time in my life, the only time, and I establish my life by choice.
Okay, but you do have a child in the world. I mean, this is your biological child.
Absolutely.
What is your responsibility to this child? Whether intended or otherwise, this is your offspring.
Well, I mean, at this point, I choose not to participate in the child's life. We pay our monthly support and we do our thing. And I don't know, as you talk to Matt, I don't know if that's right. You know, I don't know how I'm going to feel down the road. She makes good points. Mel makes good points.
Okay, but I'm glad they make good points. That's why I ask them here, because they're good point makers. But my question is to you, just man to man, do you feel any sense of responsibility to this child? Do you want to know this child? However the child came to be, this is part of you.
At this point, I choose not to. I had made a choice to get married and have children, and I'm leading my own life. And in the meantime, while I've done that, 2 years later down the road, I'm now notified that I'm a father without any choice or a voice. So I don't know at this point. I mean, life has been really complicated over the last 4 or 5 years.
I suspect. And at this point, how much of this is influenced by your wife at this? Because you're very adamant about this. You resent having to pay this money.
Absolutely.
You resent having him have to be even financially involved with this child, right?
I resent that our perfect circle that we created by choice, we chose to be married, we chose to have 2 children, we chose to buy a house, everything we chose was a conscious choice. And we created something very valuable, and that this incident, this woman who made her choices, has come in and crumbled our foundation.
Noel has, in my mind, 2 children. I do not believe that DNA is the measure of fatherhood any more than if he had become a sperm donor and there was another child running around the world with his DNA. And you know how I know that? Because it's gone to court. And when fathers who find that maybe a child that they thought was theirs wasn't, and they seek to be absolved of child support because there's no DNA connection, courts always say DNA is not the measure of fatherhood. He's a sperm donor with this other child. He has 2 children, not 3.
You should not be punishing the child. You are punishing the child because the child is in existence. Yes, the child, don't shake your head no at me, because the child is being punished by not having the love and the support of the child's father.
We have 2 children that get all the love that we need. We did not choose this woman's
But she's not talking about what you need, she's talking about what the child needs. All right, we have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to find out what the other woman has to say about Noel. Now, Nicole and Noel have been giving child support to his ex-girlfriend for a baby they never knew existed when they got married. They say the effect of all of this is not just financial. Nicole says it's taken an emotional toll as well.
We absolutely see our family as a family of 4. We don't regard the other child. I don't feel responsible for this child at all. I feel that Noel was basically a sperm donor to this woman to have a child.
I had already started a life by choice with my wife, and I had already had children. And this just threw a big wrench into the whole system.
It affected Noel and I as a family in so many ways. The tension of that reality really tore us apart, and it really broke up that perfect circle. The conscious choices that we made and the effort that we have put into creating this world that we live has been shaken by the choice of another woman, when we have to tell our children that they have a half brother out there. And that's the part that is really shattering. It's going to just really devastate their world.
Now, I want to say that we invited the mother of the child to be here, and she accepted at first and then changed her mind. This is what her response to us was. Quote, unless I get paid at least $5,000, I'm not willing to put my life out there. Now, just for the record, we do not pay our guests to appear on the show at all. Here's more of what she wrote. This is based on Noel's ego-driven need to put on Front Street.
Well, and I just want to go back to the fact that she never wanted Noel to have any participation with this child in the first place. She simply wanted the cash, and she made that very clear. She is still enforcing her rights as a woman. And again, you know, you're saying this child has a right. Well, you've now bypassed the rights of a man to make any choices of his own.
Well, actually,
a woman
it's not
has
true
complete
because
rights.
he does have the right to visit the child.
But whose rights are more important
He has
at this
that
point?
right, and he can enforce that right. He doesn't have a duty, and I wish it were a legal duty.
I'm
That's
sure you
for the
do.
future. But he does have a right to visit the child, to participate in that child's life, and whether or not she wants him to, he could go to court and enforce that.
Suppose it could be proved that the woman in this case defrauded him and tricked him and set him up and it was all about money. Suppose he could prove that. Should there be any consequence to the woman for that fraud? Any at all?
Mel, let me tell you something.
What's the
I'm
answer?
asking a
Most of
question.
us,
I'm asking
most
you a
of us
question.
in the studio and watching the Dr.
You're
Phil
not
show
answering my
today,
question.
let me finish my sentence, please. Have a little courtesy. Most of us are the product of unplanned pregnancies. Now, that's just the reality
Not my kids.
of life.
Well, you didn't
and
answer the
some
question.
people are, and some people are not. Courts are not going to get into how a child came to be in existence. The court wants to protect the child and make sure that that child is supported and not left hungry on the street without shoes,
And the result
without
is that
clothing,
the courts wind up
without
countenancing
care.
fraud
That's
and
what we need to
rewarding
do.
fraud,
You
and
know,
that shouldn't be the
no,
case.
as a society, the public policy is correct. We need to protect children
But we are
because
looking
you
for
know what?
protection
You're an
for
adult.
men.
You can protect yourself, but that's a little baby, and that baby cannot protect.
Okay, well, we're
himself.
talking
we're
about
here-
we're talking about fraud in the situation, or where someone clearly has made a conscious decision to not be a father to begin with. All right, next we're going to find out what happens if a woman wants to go after financial support, even if a man says he just donated his sperm. We'll be right back. What if a man donated his sperm to a woman and years later she went to court for child support? Clearly, it was a donation of sperm. Now, it's happened, and attorney John Purcell represented a man in a case that wound up changing the law in Pennsylvania. Now, his client claimed to have donated sperm that produced twins. When they were 5 years old, the mother went after him for child support. What happened when it first went to trial, John?
Well, when we first went to trial, we lost. It sort of assumed that in most cases, the anonymity of the father would be presumed and nobody would go after the father. But she knew who it was because he donated his sperm to what was at the time an ex-girlfriend.
This actually went on for 5 years. So he paid child support for all that time. So we're talking about, what, $65,000, right?
Yeah, roughly.
That he paid for donating, and now the Supreme Court has upheld that he doesn't have that responsibility. So does he have any recourse to get that money back?
Well, it's not over yet. We have a petition before the court pending right now in which we're asking for an order for the return of the money. Whether we'll get it or not, I don't know.
Now, Mel, I'm sure you think that was just crazy that they required him to pay when he had just donated sperm. You don't think he should be responsible when he made a donation of sperm? This wasn't, this, do you still think he should be responsible?
If a sperm donation is made through a licensed sperm bank, then it's clear that the sperm donor should not have to pay child support, because then it's clear that both parties know that the sperm donor is not going to be responsible for the child. But if it's not through a sperm bank, through some other means, and they're going to have to check the law of their state first, because it may be that he is not a real sperm donor and may have to support the child.
Broader solution here is to say that fatherhood, like motherhood, should be a matter of choice and should not be defined by DNA. That would solve this problem and other problems.
The broader solution is to sit down and talk with your partner and know your partner before you get into bed with them. That's what you really should do, have an understanding of them.
It's clearly a hot topic. I'm sure we're not through with it yet. All right, next, we're going to talk to a TV star and radio personality who receives a phone call from the son he never knew. Find out how he first thought it was all a big scam. We'll be right back. Well, you probably know him best from his roles on TV's Cheers and also as Candice Bergen's love interest on Murphy Brown. But at age 31, Jay Thomas was struggling to get his career going in Hollywood. That's when an unplanned pregnancy really impacted his life. He and his girlfriend agonized over the choice, but decided to place the child for adoption. Little did Jay know, 18 years later, the son he never knew would track him down and ask to be part of his life. Please welcome two-time Emmy winner, Jay Thomas.
Thank you.
What did you think when you got that first phone call? It was from the bio
Well, you
mom,
hear
right?
a voice you haven't heard in, almost 20 years or whatever, and so, okay, here we go. So you hear the voice, and then you hear this story that there's this boy, and he lives near your house, and he's in the neighborhood where you live. I said, I didn't want to hear about it. I said, we gave the kid up. I hope he had a nice life, and, if anybody knows me, they know that I'm kind of cut and dried. And so then I said, I think it's a scam. This is a guy scamming me, right? Scamming you. So let's, So finally, we talk on the phone. And I said, look, you had a nice life? He goes, I had a great life. You love your parents? Great. I go, okay, good. I got no interest in you, And he says, well, I don't need anything from you. I said, okay, cool. So I said, look, why don't we, I said, I'd like to meet you, but I want to meet you in a public place in case you're crazy and you try to kill me or something like that. So he says, what do you do? I said, I don't want you to know what I do, okay? I'll meet you someplace like that. So she says to him, well, he's not like us. He's not like other people. And he thinks, well, he's like, in jail, or he's, I don't know what he is, clown or something. So finally, she says, he bugs her, and she says, well, he's an actor. And he, of course, had always wanted to be a musician. And he says, well, just tell me a show he's been on. And she says, well, he was on Cheers. And my son says, my dad is Ted Danson, I'm rich. I'm rich. She says, no, it's not Ted Danson. It's Jay Thomas. And there was a pause, I think. My picture had been all over LA on the radio. I'd been on every show. This kid had watched me his whole life and lived, and a 80-foot poster of mine was across the street from his apartment when I was in the radio in LA. And so now, I don't know that he's that happy that I'm his dad. He wasn't interested in me being his dad. So I said, I tell you what, I'm doing a show. Okay, you know who it is. I have a comedian friend of mine named Rodney Lee Conover who has gone to my vasectomy. He goes to all kind of horrifying things for me and with me. So I said, look, this kid who says he's my son is going to go to one of the shows. You sit next to him, and you come backstage later and tell me what you think. So I'm doing this comedy show, and he comes backstage, and he says, I'm sitting next to you 20 years ago. And then we met that night, and within 2 weeks, he was house sitting. He was with my family. I have 2 boys, and, it just worked out great for us.
So let's meet Jay's son, JT.
Yeah.
What do you say, man? Good to see you. Have a seat.
How's it going, man?
Okay, good.
Yeah. Hold me, Jay. Hold me.
I will.
Hold me, Jay.
All right.
How's it going?
No, you sit over here. Sit over there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
His first non-egotistical moment.
So what did you think when you met him?
Oh my God, I'm gonna be bald.
Worse things could happen. Worse things could happen. All right.
Oh my God.
Were you scared when you met? Were you nervous?
I was, but I was also, kind of thrilled. I've always been very curious where I came from. I've had 2 or still have, 2 great parents. I was nervous what my parents would feel and my brother back at home, but yeah, it was very exciting,
And there were so many similarities between the two of you. I find it so odd or interesting that you're living in an apartment here and there's an 80-foot picture of your bio dad across the street and you don't know it's him, but you've seen it a million times.
And it had the body of a woman, and it said, "We apologize for Jay Thomas," and so it was very surreal. I was working at a CD store that Jay had come into. I had taken my demo tape trying to get a record deal to a movie premiere where some rock stars were, and Jay was actually emceeing that. I'd never met him, didn't know who he was. And my friends and I were heckling him, "Bring out Prince, you loudmouth." I mean, it was bizarre, And these are all true stories, and but it's been pretty exciting. He has an amazing wife named Sally and 2 great kids named Jake and Sam.
So at this point, you're clearly glad that you got the phone call.
Well, if he had been a nut, I wouldn't have hung around with him. I mean, he's a nut, but when he and I met, I have more in common with him than I do with my 2 boys now, who they see me every day. They don't find me so silly and interesting and all. JT and I find each other very interesting. We also find each other very, we like ourselves too. So when I met him, I said, "Gee, it's fun to meet somebody who gets me." Finally, we started saying that I was...
Sorry to interrupt, but he wasn't allowed to tell his kids who I was because, his wife, who was great, is like, say he's your cousin or their uncle, they're going to be all messed up, so we,
No, my wife said, "Dr. Phil says you need to go to therapy." So I said, okay. She said, and they would want to know who's JT. They loved him, and I would just say he's my friend. It was 2-for-1 margarita night at the Red Robin one night. I was losing about $10,000 on a football game. I had 2 margaritas. My 8-year-old son sits down and I go, "Hey, JT? You know who he is?" "Who did?" "He's your brother." And he says, "When did Mom have him?" I said, all of a sudden, I was sorry I said it. I said, no, he didn't. Your mom didn't have him. Another woman had him. And he says, "Where does she live?" I said, and then he said, "Are you going to give us away?" I said, "No." So I get him in the car, and I said, "Look, you can't tell Mom because we're going to go to a therapist and we're going to talk, and the therapist is going to tell you, and you have to act surprised." So I give him candy and balloons and wherever he wants. So we get back to the house, and my wife's in the kitchen, and he just runs in and runs upstairs, and she goes, "How was it?" "Oh, it's good, blah, blah, blah." The little one comes running down the stairs and says, Mom, JT? He's our brother." And I turned to my wife and I said, "We just saved $10,000 in therapy."
Well, that is wrong on so many levels. I can't even begin to tell you.
Yeah.
That's a whole show.
Exactly.
That's a whole show. All right, we got to get out of here, but I thank you guys for coming. I wanted
Party
people
Like a
to
Rock
know...
Star is his new song, which I hope he makes a lot of money and gives me some of it.
I just wanted to show you an example that sometimes that phone call is a good thing. Jay Thomas, you can hear him on Sirius Satellite Radio. Tell me the name of the song again.
"I'm Gonna Party Like a Rock Star" by JTX.
We'll be right back. Thanks so much. It was fun. It was great. Well, we've tried to talk about this from all sides and all angles. And for more information on today's show, I want you to go to drphil.com. You can join our online community and talk to others going through some of the same issues that you may be going through. And, we go to the message boards. I want to hear what you think about this. Clearly we're talking about whether men have the right to choose fatherhood or not. I want to know what you think about that. Thanks to Jay Thomas for sharing his son and his story with us today. And you can dial Jay up digitally on Sirius Satellite Radio, so make sure to give him a listen. You will be entertained. So, JT, thanks for coming. I appreciate you being here, Jay. Thank you. Thanks to attorney Gloria Allred, John Purcell, and Director of National Center for Men, Mel Fight. And thanks to all of my guests, Matt, Diane, Nicole, and Noel, for talking about a very difficult subject. We'll see you next time. So long.